To our focus now, India is seeking to deepen its commitment to nuclear energy as the net oil importer seeks energy security. The government is considering amendments to its nuclear legislative to encourage private sector investment. India's atomic energy bill currently does not allow participation from private firms or even state governments. Amendments to the bill is slated to be tabled in the current winter session of the parliament, which started on December the 1st. This comes on the backdrop of India's ambitious target of 100 gigawatts of nuclear power capacity by 2047. Joining us now to talk about this is Shah Nawaz Ahmad. He's a senior advisor at the World Nuclear Association. Thank you so much, sir, for taking your time, your precious time, and talking to us. I just want to get your overview first on this plan of the Indian government to bring it to Parliament, bring in this amendment, not one but two actually, in two different acts. How does that change the landscape in India? What do you think is going to happen?
Thank you. Foremost, we'd like to thank you for this opportunity for the World Nuclear Association to talk to you. Well, the most important thing is that presently the Atomic Energy Act, which was also proposed to be amended, permits only operation and ownership of nuclear power plants by central government, that is the federal government entities. So the first effort is to broaden the scope and get in more players into it. Currently, if you look at it, the private sector is largely involved with EPC work or supply of equipment. The design and ownership rests with the entities, largely Nuclear Power Corporation of India Limited presently. So the Act proposes to permit more participation, not only Indian, but also foreign. That would require certain amendments in the Act itself, as well as some legislation that will encourage private players to join the nuclear commitments.
Yeah, I can already... Sorry, sir, I assumed that you had ended. Please continue.
No, the other act I just wanted to explain is for what is called the Liability Act. It presently permits recourse to suppliers, which has been something of a dampener in other entities entering the market. And this is proposed to be amended, perhaps largely to be in line with international laws. Yes, please.
Right. Thank you for that. That overview is helpful. I also want to just add a little context out here that the state of India's nuclear energy sector is interesting because right now we have around 24 to 25 reactors operating, 9 under construction, 12 approved for construction, and India makes about 8 gigawatts of nuclear capacity and is aiming for 100 gigawatts by 2047. Please, weigh in if you think I'm missing anything that's critical to understand. And talking about that liability aspect, you yourself just mentioned that it was a concern. Private firms had this hesitancy when entering or discussing this matter with government officials. They were concerned about the risk of unlimited exposure in the event of any incident. And we've already seen this development taking place with reports suggesting that the Adani Group itself is exploring opportunities to participate in India's nuclear power sector, goals to privatize, and that is interesting. But, and this is critical, an Adani official said the group has a strong interest in nuclear energy, but would require liability norms before moving forward. What color can you give us on what those liability norms are likely to be in this changed act?
Well, essentially, I would expect, of course, till the law is passed in Parliament, what would be the final version, but I would expect that this recourse would be made, maybe even removed in a certain way in the legal sense, because the liability may be limited to the value of the supply or the contract period of the order of the material or the equipment that has been delivered. But having said that, I would expect that the legal eagles would be looking at this very closely because if we want international players, they would expect this to be in line with international agreements. I think that's where it will go.
What would that look like?
Well, see, liability, the only issue was that there was a recourse to suppliers. Now, if the liability of the suppliers is either limited or removed, then it becomes a level playing field internationally. So, and from that point of view, I think that we will see a resurgence of interest.
Okay.
That's I think, what Adani was trying to say.
All right. Very interesting. I want to talk about one aspect, that if this liability clause is the essence of this bill and that is removed and that gives a little bit more security to these private players, what happens to the noise, or you can term it noise or you could term it concerns around potential for public protests and politics weighing on these decisions that are expected in Parliament, clearances, because we have seen protests around Not In My Yard. We have seen protests from the opposition parties. I just want to get a sense from you about how you see that playing out, because historically that's been a big issue.
Well, I think this is something that will play out, in my opinion, well, because of several reasons. One thing is they have been debated threadbare, so people do know what are the limitations. The second thing is that if you would remember, when certain protests had happened earlier, the court had decided that nuclear power has more benefits than disadvantages. This should also help in, should, God forbid, any legal issues come up. But at the end of the day, it is the economics, the need of power, the need to achieve net zero,
right,
to which many opposition parties are also committed. So okay, I would think that this should not be too difficult an issue.
That's interesting. One of the issues that is being debated around this conversation is the tariff determination. That is up for debate, because if this major policy decision actually goes through, the industry will be watching out for this aspect that fuel source is likely to become a key factor in regulating the rates. What's your take on that? How important is this aspect in the government making sure that there is confidence in private players coming into the sector?
Well, I think the first thing we need to remember is that the fuel cost in a nuclear power plant is a very small fraction of the total cost of the plant. So in terms of it affecting tariffs, would be minimal. Yes, India has made many agreements for supply of uranium. Things could become a bit more complex when new reactors, particularly SMRs, come with different types of fuel. But the market, uranium market, is fairly open, competitive, and stable.
Right.
There is also interest in opening new mines. So I would think that uranium would not be an issue as such. But yes, its security of supply will have to be arranged through maybe bilateral agreements, or whilst looking at the market more closely and making sure that it remains stable and profitable.
I think the key concern here has been speed, because we know that there's a deal with Canada, as India and Canada's relationship is thawing, valued at about 2.8 billion USD to ship uranium from Canada to India. There's also this conversation around AI and data center hub activity in India that is going to become potentially a big part of India's AI, sector. Electricity is the issue, right? The speed also with which we're going to get this nuclear energy to impact positively all of these sectors. So about that, are we fast enough, or are we not?
Well, see, in the what you call nuclear sector, the regulator plays a very important role. And therefore, the knowledge base is very important. This is, I think, where India has been very lucky, because it has had a very long, comprehensive, and mature program. There are a lot of people, since India has a large number of reactors that have been operating for a very long time, it has a large pool of personnel. And it also, India has experience in handling several technologies. So this aspect should be India's strength. The other thing is that once you are trying to sort of bring in more electricity, more power, the trade-off between smaller reactors or SMRs and larger reactors would have to be considered. I would expect that as far as electricity is concerned, the larger reactors, the present standard reactors, would be contributing. The SMRs may be more niche, more customized, and for instance, we do talk of replacement of coal-fired plants by nuclear SMRs. So in that context, India's ability to accelerate should be taken as positive.
Okay.
Even smaller countries, like for instance, Sweden is a classical example, were rapidly able to build a large number of nuclear power plants. Of course, there may be constraints. There has been mentioned at some level about finance, but I think we have enough rich Indians around. Once committed, we would be at least able to raise the initial capital.
Okay.
And of course, as things progress, foreign capital should come in.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir. The Nuclear Energy Mission of India allocating also 20,000 crore with the plan of developing at least 5 indigenously designed small modular reactors by 2033. So that's an interesting conversation we can continue to have the next time you're on. Thanks so much for joining us. That was Shah Nawaz Ahmad from the World Nuclear Association.